The CPI report, Child Protection in Iowa, is brought to you by Vocal Victims of Child Abuse Laws. You can watch our program here in Des Moines on Mediacom Channel 15. Our program is aired on Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, and again it's aired at 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday evening. Also, those that live in the Council Bluffs area get to see half of our taping, I guess you could say, because it's played every other Thursday out there at 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon. You can email us at vocaliowa, vocaliowa at mchsi.com. My number here in Des Moines is 515-276-3956. I'm sure our subject interests people in the Council Bluffs area as much as in Des Moines, because the issues are a lot the same when parents lose their children. So we can be of some help to the people out there too and give them some thought. So if you give us a call, we'll do our best to give you what thoughts we can. We are not attorneys, but we have a lot of years behind us of knowledge that we can share with you. John's number here in Des Moines is 515-282-2672. My name is Don Bergmeyer, and with me at the controls is my co-host,
John Harvey, and welcome to the CPI report. We're thankful that we can visit in your homes and bring information that may be of interest to you personally and may be helpful to your family. Last week I spoke just very briefly. Well, it wasn't as brief as we thought, but we took on a task of trying to show the profile of what's happening with the Department of Human Services and what their longevity might be. And we simply said that their longevity is very highly dependent upon some of the things that we as families do ourselves. One moment.
something slip off the table.
Okay. Once in a while, we have to give some attention to the old clock on the wall, and sometimes clocks on the wall get shifted about. Well, so we were talking about some of the things that will perpetuate a system which is already out of control. Is it wise to engage in practices which cause an agency to be formed, which causes an agency to expand its influence, which causes an agency to go to the state treasury to ask for more and more money so they can be very, very helpful? Well, that is the case right now. One of the biggest problems that we find with the agency is something called drug abuse. And as long as there's drug abuse, you're going to find a social worker poking around to see if he or she cannot get some kind of jurisdiction to enter the home and to bother the parents. We saw a case in the Supreme Court just recently, or in the Court of Appeals, where a little girl was removed from her home. Mother did use drugs. Mother used drugs even more once the stress of intervention by DHS hit. So, and then once DHS gets in, their influence on the child and on the mother is often counterproductive. So it is not a very interesting situation when our behavior as families causes the perpetuation of a service that we really don't need. Now, there are many other ways that we can act in such a way as to help perpetuate this big monster at our door. You see, several decades ago, we didn't even need the Department of Human Services. We somehow managed our own affairs in such a way that we didn't need their services. Dan Boddicker, who headed the House Committee on Human Services, once said he'd like to see a for sale sign put up on their building, which means that we don't need them anymore. Wouldn't that be great? But you see, that is not going to happen until such time that our behavior changes and that we can put away the need for the Department of Human Services. You see, if 80% of the children who are removed from homes in central Iowa are removed because of drugs, and then we remove the drugs, then we can cut down the court dockets. We can cut down the expense of having the social workers tend to that business. One of the other things that I mentioned in that report was the breakup of the family, because the breakup of the family is a disaster to the children. And Department of Human Services love disasters because that means that they get to go in and place the children in the custody of the Department of Human Services under the tender guidance and guardianship of Kevin Concannon, who is the director. So with all this loving care comes a lot of expense, simply because of the instability that is engendered when families don't follow a pattern like mom and dad and children and Spot and Puff. You see, without that general pattern where we have a provider and we have someone watching over the nest, we will engender some type of instability that will gain the notice sooner or later from the Department of Human Services, and then they will come in and help us tear apart whatever structure is left of the family. Well, enough of that. We'll expand on that because there are many other areas that we need to attend to so that one day we can go in, shut the doors, invite the social workers to go home and not bother anybody anymore. Not bother to tap on the door of the treasurer's office for more money. Not intervene and to cause problems for good Iowa families. Wouldn't that be great? I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime, but it is something to dream about at least. Well, in today's program, we're going to switch a little bit in our topic area from strictly child protection to some of the overall issues. One of them is, do we have First Amendment rights left? Do we have Sixth Amendment rights left? Well, we're going to be looking at a videotape in just a moment, but before I do, there may be some opening remarks that Terrence Walker may have with respect to what he's been viewing in this past week. Terrence Walker.
Thanks for having me on the show once again, John and Don. I appreciate the opportunity to share with folks out there some of my views on the state of the judiciary, which is why I'm termed the judge of the judges here in the state of Iowa. And each week we bring to you information pertaining to the judges and their conduct and some of their opinions and such. But yes, my name is Terrence Walker, and I think that you guys have all seen in the news here, at least the people here in the greater Des Moines area that have watched the news as of lately. Last week, as of time of this showing of this show, Uh, about August 15th, there was a incident at the Pierre Pierce trial, or should I say the juror selection in Adel, Iowa. And before that proceeding, members of FIJA, Fully Informed Jury Association, were handing out information to inform people about what was going on. I think that the uh, videotape will shed more light on the whole incident, and also the judge's conduct in that regard. You had something to say, John?
I had a question. Would you want to tell us a little bit of background on what brought the whole case out here? Probably a lot of people, including myself, don't know too much about the what started
Well, I
all
think
this.
Dell goes over that in the tape.
Okay.
Doesn't he, John? I think-
No, he doesn't talk about the
Okay.
charges. The
Okay.
charges consist of burglary, assault with the intent to commit sexual abuse, and criminal mischief. By the way, the sexual abuse is not of children. She may have a child like mine, but this was an adult. And criminal mischief. Nobody knows what the charges are or the penalty is for each of those, but they have told us that the cumulative charges would put Pierre Pierce, highly notable athlete to the University of Iowa, would put him away for 56 years. In the meantime, just defending himself has cost him a fortune, and he doesn't have the funds, even though he has the potential of millions of dollars of income. This very charge has slowed him down.
He has lost his income, hasn't he?
Um,
His basketball career?
That's correct. And he can't even go home and live with his parents in Illinois because the judge says no, that he is such a dangerous creature because he's accused that he can't even go home. Terrence?
Yeah, and I think I can't really shed a whole lot of additional light that's not going to be covered. So I think we should probably proceed with the tape. But I think the reason it was moved out of Adel, to touch on Don's question, was because of it happened in Dallas. Was it Dallas County?
Happened in Dallas County.
And
Adel Courthouse.
and so, well, the incident that was alleged to have occurred happened in Dallas County, and I think Adel is, I believe, the seat
Of Dallas
the
County.
seat of Dallas County, where
Right.
they have the courthouse.
You bet.
Okay. I guess we could just watch the tape and get some insight from Dale.
Okay. What you're going to see is a preview from Del Lawrence, who is he's going to introduce himself and give you his title and background for the Fully Informed Jury Association. The tape shows the passing out of leaflets, but it also shows something that you have never seen before, neither have I. And that is when the judge comes out on the public sidewalk and publicly tells somebody that they cannot publicly hand out public literature to jurors, to other people entering a public place. By the way, the public place is the ADM High School. That's Adel High School. It was held at the high school because of the conditions, the less than stable conditions of the old courthouse in Adel, which is now undergoing renovation. So we're going to listen to a tape, and we're going to leave our microphones open for comments as we go, because part of it you don't hear much in terms of sound during this taping until the judge comes out. And what you want to do is to watch the sidewalk. And if you see some creeping shadows coming during this process, the creeping shadows
Pretty creepy, huh?
are the shadows of Judge Hulse and a very large wrestler type
Uh-oh.
built cop. Um, why he needs a law enforcement officer beside him, I do not know.
I get the idea John Harvey doesn't think too much of those cops down there.
No,
Deputies.
no, I think I can get along with a lot less security. I feel a lot more secure without the security there. And this very large cop actually got between me and between my camera and the judge. And you'll see that down a few minutes into the taping. So let's now go to Adel, Iowa, where we'll see what's going on at the school, which now is under construction, but they're still going to use it this year. There wasn't anything going on here except for jury selection and orientation of new teachers.
But you know, maybe what they're going to do is just have a little hearing here.
Properly instituted, they even have a flag.
Pretty sky.
Dale Lawrence.
Hi, I'm Del Lawrence. I am the state coordinator for the Fully Informed Jury Association of Iowa. I've taken an interest in this case, the Pierce case, since early this year, probably late February and following that. It seems that these charges were pretty outrageous. Pierce is being charged 4 different charges, totaling up to 56 years in prison time. And that just really caught my attention. I've kind of enjoyed Hawkeye basketball. I watched quite a few of their games, and he was like one of their star players. And so this got a lot of attention in our local newspaper. I'm from Marion, which is next to Cedar Rapids, and been following this case all along. It has had a lot of ups and downs, and even at the last moment here on Monday, see, this is Monday the 13th, is it?
I believe so.
I believe so. Well, it's Monday, and we're here at the Adel High School to pass out literature about the Fully Informed Jury Association. We believe that the jurors are not being informed of all their rights. And one of the particular things that we're interested in, the general public knowing, is that jurors, the state law keeps jurors from knowing the prison terms attached to their verdicts. And that's really important when charges are being made and the jurors don't know what the punishment might be, because you can have a charge, whether it's like first, second, or third, or A, B, C, and D, whatever it is, and the way that it's written, you might have no idea what its severity would be as far as punishment. And what will happen is the jurors will find out afterwards, and then the typical comment is, what have we done, or what did we do? And this case is a lot like this case in Eagle Grove of a man that was sent to prison for 25 years, and the punishment was considered harsh. So we're here today to pass out literature. We haven't seen too much has happened yet, but it looks like it's going to. Frank, do you have a few words? Frank Brown?
Yeah, the date is actually August the 15th. Saturday was August 13th. My name is Frank Brown. I'm chairman of the Fully Informed Jury Association of Iowa. I've noticed a lot of publicity on television about this particular case. I didn't have any feelings one way or the other about the case, because I didn't really know much about it other than what we've seen on TV. But one thing that we're truly interested in is that there's justice in any legal proceeding. we have seen so much of the time that the prosecutors have a tendency to want to bring charges against people, whether they be low profile or high profile, and to stack up their agenda. And so we want to make sure that whether it's a poor person, a rich person, whether a famous person or whoever it would be, they would get a proper trial and a proper hearing. And there are some very serious questions concerning this particular case, especially after I've read some of the things in the paper.
Adel
And,
police
some of the
arriving
questionable
to
tactics
guard the
of
judge.
prosecution. That doesn't mean in any way that I'm saying that Pierre Pierce hasn't done something wrong. I'm not saying he's done something right. That is not the case. The case is that we want to make sure that the legal process goes through properly, and that if there is a trial, it'll be done properly. And remember, a person is always innocent until proven guilty, and that's the way we want to have this, our jury system, where a person is truly innocent until proven guilty.
They say there were something like 100 jurors show up. We didn't see that many come across and take materials, but I think I have a pretty good idea that how many jurors there actually were at the ADM High School. Notice that they're receiving that literature, maybe not eagerly, but at least they're polite and take it.
Would you call it educational literature, John?
It's educational literature. It's an important task, this task of being a juror.
PJ holds meetings in Des Moines 2 or 3 times a year, so if anybody is interested, we're welcome to come to those meetings.
I just wanted to add something. These rather mild-mannered individuals, Frank Brown and Dale Lawrence.
Not trying to
I
sell
guess-
anything, are they?
I guess they look very threatening out there to the authorities, huh?
Right. Well, they're poisoning, we'll find out.
The power of the paper is very strong, or as they used to say, or maybe still do, the power of the pen is
Yeah.
very strong.
They're poisoning. Boy, I hate to get that, Judge. Very loose with his interpretations, wouldn't he?
That's
Wouldn't he be?
Notice that the skilled cameramen took pictures only of the backs of their heads so that we didn't get criticism for putting their faces on television.
Would that skilled cameraman be you?
That's correct.
I guess if you're going to pat somebody in the back, you might as well pat yourself, right?
Either a skilled cameraman or a scared cameraman. Looks like a pretty friendly manner of gentleman there with a big smile. Good job, Frank. Watch the demeanor of these fellas. See if they get all shook up when the judge tries to intimidate them. It's hard to ruffle their feathers. Harry's talking to a reporter. Del Lawrence is talking to a reporter.
this is all in front of the Adele High School?
Correct. Didn't catch him in time. He's probably school staff anyhow.
Yeah, but all people need to read the literature to get an understanding of
Sure.
what's going on.
See those long shadows near Frank? If you see the long shadows and they're moving, that means trouble.
Couldn't be any more of a cliche.
That's right. The
The
long,
long, dark shadows.
Yeah, long arms of the law.
So you're talking about a different shadow than Del Lawrence is putting out.
Right. No, same style. But it moves.
You're anticipating another shadow that moves.
That's right.
You know the future before it happens. What channel was that?
KWWL from Waterloo.
Oh, it's a big story, huh?
Yep, it's a big story. Listen very carefully for the words of the judge. What kind of terms is he using against Frank and Dell? We mentioned one already, poisoning,
I haven't seen a judge yet, John.
and one is impinging.
You keep talking about a judge and a shadow, but I haven't seen anything yet.
Just watch the shadows.
At a farmer? Got a cap on.
I think so. He said, why are you taping all this? Well, there's a good reason to tape stuff when you have evil judges.
Of course, you didn't know about that evil judge in advance, though. That took you by a little surprise, didn't it?
We can anticipate. There's Michelle Parker from KCCI TV.
I see a shadow moving, but that's not a judge's shadow, though.
Again, I wanted to point to the fact that these mild-mannered gentlemen appear very threatening to someone, huh?
Right.
Is that
Here
it?
comes the shadows. Watch the shadows.
Oh, my.
Right now. Because poisoning the jury, I'll make a record on it later. If you fail to follow my order at this time, you may be found in contempt. Contempt is punishable by term in jail not to exceed 6 months and a $500 fine. And I intend to enforce my rule.
Large cop steps in front
This
of
is
small
public
camera.
property, but I have a jury going in here, and you don't even know why you're doing this, why you're poisoning
go.
this jury. But
How
I'm
does
gonna
he know
tell.
that you don't know?
I'm telling you, follow my orders, or I'm gonna have you locked up. Now,
Believe me, he
that they
says.
have no concern with the sentence. And look on the back of this. This burglary is one of the charges in this case. And you're talking about the sentencing. And you've already created a problem for me with this jury.
Well, I don't understand what the problem
Now,
is.
you can either take my word, I'm not gonna
Should
go
we pass
into
out
it.
different information? I have different information here.
All I know is that a juror walked in with this.
That's right.
Well,
I've been passing out the
as far as I'm concerned, you have no right to hand this out at this time to jurors specifically walking into this case.
I have passed out this.
I don't care what you've
thousands
done.
of this in front of the federal building in Cedar Rapids.
I don't care what you have done. You are now impinging upon the facts of this case.
We can pass out different literature.
This doesn't have anything to do
Which
with
case is he
I've
talking
told
about?
you,
Individual.
I've told you, you make up your own, yes, you have. Yes,
His
you
name
have.
is not mentioned in this case, in this paper.
I've told you, please regard my order at this time. And if you don't,
We will
please,
stop handing
please
this
be
out.
ready
Yeah,
to accept the consequences.
And,
Well, your deputy is about blocking out the sun.
That's right.
Was there a decision without a hearing with all the
Yep.
evidence?
Yeah.
Well, he got a defense because he said that he didn't even know why he did it. So
Yeah,
if he faces some consequences, he can bring this in court and say, well, Judge, you even said that I didn't know why I did this.
Surprise, one is it's a free
So,
speech issue, and this is public property,
That's proof of
taxpayer
innocence.
property. And
he's responding
I've been
to
passing out this literature for
to a
12 years
Waterloo
in the
station
County Courthouse,
report.
in the federal building in Cedar Rapids, and never had a judge come out and talk to us like that. Frank, you want to get that lady?
So what are you gonna do?
Well, we changed to different literature. And not really anything. Hope that media will pick up on this because they seem like they're really interested in what the judge had to say. And we switched to different literature, which doesn't say anything about a case that took place about a year and a half ago.
So what are you trying to tell jurors to do?
Well, we want them to be informed. What has happened here is, in cases like this one in particular, is that the jurors are not informed of what the punishment is for the charge. And they say it's a state law. Well, I've checked on that. It's not really a state law. It's not something that's been passed by the legislature. It's been passed by the judges. They've been doing it for like 80 years, not telling the jurors what the charges are. And when you have a charge such as burglary, there are several different levels of that, like 1, 2, and 3, or A, B, C. And the way it's read to the jurors, they can't tell from that whether it's a really serious crime or just sort of a minor crime. And then they'll come out afterwards and they'll find out, Frank.
So what do you guys do?
They will come out afterwards and say, well, what did we do? They had no clue what the punishment was. And it's like the article I passed. They charged the guy 25 years for getting a can of beer out of the refrigerator, and he never even took the can of beer out of the refrigerator. He still put him away for 25 years. You got any more questions?
Well, do you think even that kind of information can taint the jury, though? If you're giving them a case and they say this is unfair, the article that you have here says this was unfair to the guy. Doesn't that kind of taint the jury when they're trying to just look at everything fairly? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of know what you mean. Yeah, I suppose it would taint it, but they're not getting informed inside. Once they go through that door, they're not informed anymore about these charges because the court forbids either attorney alluding at all to what the total punishment is. They're going to have to have read that ahead of time in the newspaper or be really informed, and I'm not even informed. I wouldn't know what punishment is because they have changed a lot in recent years.
So how are you feeling when the judge was talking to you like that?
Well, he was talking to Frank the most, and I was listening in. I thought he was wrong. We have, it's freedom of speech. We have a right to pass out information on public sidewalks. It's U.S. versus Grace. That's a Supreme Court ruling that we have the right to do this. On
Does he look like he's frustrated by the judge?
So am I.
Looks pretty calm to me.
But we did confirm, we just changed to different literature.
So what literature are you?
Well, this is a national publication of the Fully Informed Jury Association. It's probably, a little bit more generic.
What do you think about what the judge said?
Kind of nervous, shook up a little bit there. It seemed to affect him. Of course, I didn't agree with him. I think that we have a right to hand out information. I also didn't mention who the defendant is in our literature. It's not even mentioned in there. It's concerning another case. And I expected, really kind of expected this in a way from the judge because they like to have complete control of the courtroom. And jurors, we're trying to show that jurors have a right to make some decisions, to have justice. That's the main purpose of this whole thing, to have justice, not have a judge or prosecutors or the defendants, lawyers control the jury. We want the jury to make proper decisions, and so there'll be justice done in the case. And if some jurors, if they feel intimidated, they can be intimidated by the judge, or they can be intimidated by the prosecuting attorney. In most cases, since they are the government, you see, generally the judges seem to favor, in some cases, I'm not saying in this case, toward government and for prosecutions. And so we want the juries to feel that they have a right to make some decisions toward proper justice.
What's your name?
Frank Brown. I'm chairman of the Fully Informed Jury Association of
Common
Iowa.
spelling for both names?
What?
Common spelling for both names?
Yes, Frank Brown, yes, right.
Okay.
Can I ask you a couple quick questions too?
Yes.
Let's see. Just want to make sure my shadow's not on your face. Can I just have you say and spell your first and last name?
My first name is Frank, F-R-A-N-K. My last name is Brown, B-R-O-W-N.
Have you ever had anything like this happen before?
No, never had anything like this happen. I did one time at the courthouse in Des Moines. They came out and told me that I was blocking that long, wide staircase down there, and that they'd get complaints in there that I was blocking it, and I was not blocking it.
But you've never had a judge come
And they
out
told, no, I never had a
It's
judge.
not that big,
The
is it?
police came out and told me
No.
to hand out literature.
And he doesn't carry
I
a
says,
gun.
well, I will hand out literature. I have a right. It's a public sidewalk. No, but I never had a judge actually come out and tell me that I couldn't hand out literature. This is the first time.
So what is it you're trying to do here?
Well, mainly I'm trying to educate jurors. That's what I'm trying to do. Of their rights when they get in that courtroom to actually perform justice. I'm not taking the side in either way in this case. But I want these jurors to know that they have a right to make some decisions, even if it goes against the judge, even if it goes against the prosecutor. If they think it's unjust, whether it's the law or whether it's the facts of the case, they don't see it. Maybe the jury don't see it the way that that's being presented.
So you're not taking sides, you say?
No, I'm not taking sides as far as whether I'm for the defendant or against the defendant in this case. I'm actually for the majority of people have never served on juries, and they need to hear it from other people about some of their rights when they get on that jury. Some of them are afraid. They get in there and they're intimidated, and we don't want jurors to be intimidated. I
How
had
long
a
have
few
you
of
been
them,
doing this?
about 10 years.
Okay, and you hand out stuff outside courtrooms all the time, outside jury selections?
Right, and then I've never had a judge ever come out and tell me I couldn't hand out literature. Now, if I went up and started telling jurors that, and telling me you go in and find him guilty or not guilty, then I'd be getting out of.
Do you understand what the judge was saying though about this one talking about burglary?
Yes, and I can see in a way what he's talking about there. So that's why we have switched to these other things. There's nothing in here on this. This is mainly about the rights of the jurors to perform their duties in a just manner.
You said you're the chairman of the...
Chairman of the Fully Informed Jury Association of Iowa.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, so you have it there. I thought that was rather an interesting portrayal of what a First Amendment a violation looks like. Have you ever heard of judges asserting jurisdiction over the sidewalk? No, they have jurisdiction in the courtroom. They do not have jurisdiction over the sidewalk.
And I never thought they had jurisdiction over informative leaflets. I'm looking at this leaflet right now, and it looks very informative. It doesn't seem like there's anything that's in the way of poisonous. The idea of the Fully Informed Jury Association is to inform people. To say that it's poisoning people, I think is going a little bit too far, and I would definitely be very weary of being in front of Judge Hulse. If he's going to do that to the ordinary definition of words, you might get some very weird opinions arriving out of his court. But a couple of the things they touch on in the front of the flyer is that the justice may depend upon your being chosen to serve, and it just basically says that basically gives them people some information on how people, if they talk too much, you may not be considered to be a juror, which, you know, nothing harmful in that. Nothing in the Constitution or any Supreme Court decision requires jurors to take an oath to follow laws. The judge explains it. Again, another fact, understand the full context in which an illegal act was committed is essential to deciding whether the defendant acted rightly or wrongfully. Again, nothing, no harm, no foul in that one. Hung juries are okay. Prosecutors often multiply charges. Yeah, I mean, these are facts. You can't be punished for voting your conscience. Jurors have the power to reduce charges against the defendant. And I would add on that point that they put in this flyer that I've often heard justices, and even in the Supreme Court case, or Iowa Court of Appeals case not too long ago, it's about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, Randy Corsi, it was a C-O-R-S-I is the spelling, when they were attempting to explain something the juror did and rationalize it as not being the product of a tainted jury instruction, they said, oh, well, the jurors can be lenient if they want to, if they choose to. So, I mean, this is in keeping with their thoughts. No harm in that one. You can say no to bad law or bad use of good law. Even the founders of this country, when they were founding it, had oftentimes articulated that if a government becomes corrupt, it is the right of the people to overthrow it or to otherwise resist it. No harm, no foul in that. That's clearly within the founder's intent. If there is a bad law out there, I think that the judges tend to have a big problem with that. However, they think that judges or that jurors are supposed to blindly follow whatever they say. I think that's a wrong concept because a lot of times they make errors. And even though they make errors and put them in the jury instructions, I would say about 99.9% of the time when you try to appeal that error, or when someone tries to appeal that error, what happens is the appellate court, the court reviewing the case, will oftentimes say, well, that's a harmless error. Well, if you got guys out there giving people information and educating the public on their roles, their constitutional right, or constitutional roles, and they're within their constitutional right to hand out information, which they clearly were. I think Dell cited the case that was demonstrative of that. Then I don't think I think it's a harmless error that the information is passed to the jury. Clearly, these are thoughts that are well known within on the front side of the flower anyway. These are thoughts that are well known within the legal community. But even on the back, it cites the criminal jury instruction that was created by judges. This is, again, like Delson Lawrence said, this is judge-made law. In the event of a guilty verdict, you have nothing to do with punishment. They cite that jury instruction. You can go to Drake Law Library and pick that up. They cite another case out of the, looks like out of the Gazette, which I think that's is that a Cedar Rapids paper? Or is that
Correct.
Okay. They cite another case where it's titled 25-year sentence for burglary. It's called Harsh, where they basically convicted a man. And this is Associated Press article, by the way. Again, this is nothing that's made up. It was in the paper, June 17, 2003, where even the jurors in the case, they convicted a guy basically walking in a house party, and I guess he happened to get in a fight with his ex-wife, and he hit her, and then all of a sudden he's behind bars for, 25 years. And even the jurors were kept in the dark about the punishment, and one of the jurors felt remorseful when she actually found out what the verdict was. She said, we assumed it would be worse, obviously with the burglary charge, but I had no idea until they read the verdict and he went to pieces. And this is a juror, Catherine Olson, from Clarion, and she thought to herself, what did we do? So I think that any time in a free, open society, you hand out information, and that information is supposed to be known. Again, we're assumed to know the law and the consequences of our actions. We're assumed innocence or ignorance of the law is no excuse, as they often say. So how is it that giving someone the information and the knowledge that they're presumed to have, how is that harmful? You know, we've got some serious problems with Judge Holst and his characterization of Frank Brown and Del Lawrence's actions. And I think that in keeping with my group that I had vote Iowa judges out, we should be definitely voting him out. Again, Judge Holst is the judge that was participated in this incident. And justice basically has no pulse in the mind of Judge Holst. That's the phrase that pays today. But just want everybody to remember that judge for future references, because his actions were clearly out of line. Did you have some comments, John or Don?
Sure did. You've been teaching us on this segment of our programming that something called judicial independence. I don't know whether you've been pushing for judicial independence or opposed to it, but at least recognizing that the judicial insists on judicial independence. It's probably a good idea because you don't want to see the judicial system operating like the political system. Now, there's nothing wrong with a campaign of balloons and bands and everything else outside of the Capitol to encourage legislators to do the will of those who are proposing a change in legislation. However, that politicizing of the legislative branch is perfectly all right. It is not perfectly all right in the judicial branch. So I think I've got to give it to them to some extent to say that there ought to be a respect for the judges to the extent that you don't try to drive them to an opinion which is not within the general boundaries of judicial concern, judicial thought, judicial research, the experience that these judges have had should be respected. And they shouldn't worry if they hear the crowds outside throwing things at the building or making noises or cheerleading for a certain opinion. However, those same rascals who insist on judicial independence should respect the independence that is needed for the jury, because the jury, in a sense, takes over for the judge with respect to the final, the findings of the facts of the case. And of course, we go a step further in saying they should also step in regarding the legal aspects of the case.
But shouldn't the citizens have independence as it respects their activities out, involved in handing out informative literature, which is not only proven but documented as fact. I really think that that should play a part as well.
Now
I think this judge seriously crossed the line, and I think that he should be punished for doing so. Because he clearly threatened with the arrest two individuals who were not doing anything wrong. Well, it might have been wrong in his mind, but if he's thinking that this literature poisoned someone, then I think that someone needs to adjust his thinking. And I think that the Judicial Qualifications Commission should step in and basically reprimand this individual judge.
I do too, on their own motion.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to wait for anything. I mean, this is just appalling. Two individuals handing out information associated with their group. Now, this is not a militant, right-wing, fascist organization, Fully Informed Jury Association. This is an organization that's been around for some time, peacefully handing out information from time to time as it respects everyone's rights, and especially when it respects jury rights and trial rights.
Perhaps an extended vacation would be nice to confer upon him.
I think that someone should
several
put him
years.
in the jail for 6 months. And,
$500 fine.
And see how that would feel.
Be a contempt of process.
I think it's really horrible that they threatened Frank Brown. Frank Brown is one of the nicest guys that I've ever met, and to come up to him and be so vile and vicious only because he's handing out something that's I mean, and the news media didn't play this out. I know, I understand they have a lot of news and they have to condense it down, but I think they should have really expanded on this because this touches on some very serious constitutional issues here.
That judge
as it
is
involves
a-
free speech.
That judge is a jealous judge. He's concerned about protecting his jury.
And his independence.
And that jury should not be belonging to him. He should not be controlling the jury. The jury should be making the decision themselves. And if he controls the jury, he just as well make the decision on guilt or innocence. Why do we need a jury if he's going to control the jury?
That's right.
And again, like they oftentimes say in the appeal courts, anytime, 99.9% of the time, and if you don't believe me, you can look up some of these opinions on the Iowa Supreme Court website involving jury rights and jury instructions. I should say jury instructions. 99.9% of the time when someone brings up as an error in their trial, the judge misinstructed the jury, the appellate court, which is a reviewing court, will oftentimes say harmless error.
Harmless error.
So
Would you like
how
to
is this any different?
would you like to see that little fuss over again for just a moment?
Yeah, it's just,
Okay.
just one little thing. I see no pulse holes.
No pulse holes. Let's see if we can bring them back for just a moment as we close out our
It's a replay.
the instant replay. Yeah. There's the cop. There's the judge.
Poisoning the jury, I'll make a record on it later. If you fail to follow my order at this time, you may be found in contempt. Contempt is punishable by term in jail not to exceed 6 months and a $500 fine. And I intend to enforce my rules.
There.
His rules.
This is public
Right.
property, but I have a jury going in here, and you don't even know why you're doing this, why you're
I think they knew.
poisoning this jury.
How do
but
we
I'm
know they
gonna
don't
tell
know? That's what I can't figure out.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, follow my orders, or I'm gonna have you locked up.
So
Believe me,
Believe him.
that they have no concern with the sentence.
no.
And look on the back of this.
Why should we trust the jurors to
burglary
do something like that?
is one of the charges in this case. And you're talking about the sentencing. And you've already created a problem for me with this jury.
Probably is a problem to him.
We don't have a jury, remember?
All he has to do
You
is
can either
instruct the
take my
jury to
word, I'm not
disregard
gonna go
anything.
into it.
They haven't been impaneled yet.
All I know is that a juror walked in with this.
Yep.
Right.
That's all he knows.
I've been passing out
As far as I'm concerned, you have no right to hand this out at this time.
Here's
to
a couple
jurors
of numbers that
specifically
you may
walking into this
want to
case.
consider.
I have passed out this.
I don't care
Consider
what
that now
you've
for the
done.
judges.
We'll see you next